Hey guys, Horror Man back for another review. So today we're going to take a look at the Ultimate Creep action figure. Now of course this is based on the first Creepshow movie and it's made by NECA Toys. And this of course is part of their ongoing line of Ultimate action figures, so you get the deluxe packaging, tons of accessories, and a little bit of extra, I guess, attention to details. So just taking a look at the packaging itself, you get this really cool classic Creepshow poster image. So of course you get the Creepshow movie logo at the top, you get the Creep himself in the movie ticket booth, and then it says Ultimate Creep action figure. And I do love that they picked this classic image. It's definitely the first thing I could think of when it comes to this movie. It's just such a cool classic image of the Creep himself. And then you can see some little details in here. I really like this little piece. You can tell it's like a sheet of paper kind of taped to the window. It just says, "The most fun you'll ever have being scared." So, really cool. And then just one thing to note about this is for collectors that like to keep stuff in the box. I did buy two of these, one for a buddy of mine and the one for me. And there is a little bit of like an alignment issue on this. I'm not sure how many boxes are affected by it. But you can see kind of like a little bit of the white trim. I'm not sure if you can see it real well, but there's a bit of like a white trim right above the window. So just note that. So if you want to leave it in the box, I would just probably look through them for a perfect one for you. Over to the side, you do get this cool 40th anniversary logo, and of course the Creepshow logo, NECA and Real Toys on the side. Same thing on the other side. And then over to the back, you do get some really cool images of the figure itself, kind of highlighting some of the different accessories. You do get a read-up about the Creepshow story itself. And then just get some cool little quotes, boxes. Kind of looks like a comic style, just like the actual book. And it just kind of talks about the accessories and things like that. So really cool. Over to the bottom, you do get the credits for the people behind the figure and the movie itself. And then if you open it up, you do get the Velcro enclosure. And then you get a really cool picture of the Creep like in the window with the moon in there. And then of course you can see the figure itself highlighted in here with all the different accessories. So definitely excited for this one. I've always been a fan of the Creepshow series. Definitely kind of like that campy horror classic, like Tom Savini horror. So definitely interested to see how well this one comes out. So let's go ahead and get this out of the box and get a closer look. Alright, so here he is outside of the packaging, and he's got a really cool look to him. He kind of reminds me of that Ghost of Christmas Future from the old Scrooge movie. It's just something about the way this hood is done. It really reminds me of that. And I'm sure it is accurate to Creepshow. It's just something about it really reminds me of that. But anyway, I wanted to mention one more thing about the packaging, which I'm really happy about. There's no twisty ties or any kind of fasteners in the box at all. And the reason I really like that is because it didn't affect the fabric. They actually even put this plastic thing like under his skirt to keep the fabric kind of like flattened out in a way. But I know when I got the retro 2-pack for Halloween 2, that twisty tie pretty much all but ruined the like jacket, like Dr. Loomis. That twisty tie was just too tight, and with fabric you don't want to mess that up. So I'm really happy that they skipped the twisty ties with this. Alright, so moving on with the review here, I always like to show these. So you do get this like included backdrop with the figure itself, and it's of course packaged in the box. And what they do is they give you this like ticket booth, and it's kind of cool. I like the idea, but it doesn't really work out because he's in the ticket booth, not in front of it. Alright, so taking a look at the first head sculpt that you get here, of course all of them will fit fine with this hood, and I want to show them with the hood as well for each different one, because he pretty much wears it the entire time you see him. But he looks really, really cool. I definitely like the details in here. You see he's got this kind of rotted flesh. Not quite a skeleton face, but very close to it. Just really, really nice details. And he does have some hair poking through there. But man, just really nice details. And the eyes are a little bit different on each different one, which I really like, but they look very, very realistic, which is just unbelievable. The nose, of course, is gone, so that's definitely more skeleton like, so pretty freaky looking there. You got the teeth looking all gangly, and you can see a little bit of the whatever flesh left and gums around his teeth. Definitely stand out a little bit. One thing I really love about these head sculpts, not just this one either, is that the jaws are hinged, which really, really makes for a lot more kind of photo opportunities and just, I guess you could say, the playability, but it just really changes up the game when they add that. So awesome feature. Now once you pull the hood back, you can see that he does have the hair. Now one thing about this one compared to the more modern TV show version of the Creep, that one had like more realistic, like the fabric hair, where this one has sculpted hair. And I have to darken this down to really show the details in the hair. There is some like brush strokes of paint and some different kind of textures going through there, but it's kind of clear, and I guess that's done so because he has like the gray kind of thinning hair. But yeah, it's definitely different from the original like TV show Creep that they did before this one. So definitely a little bit of a switch up, but it does seem to work pretty good. Now before I switch out the head sculpt, I do want to show you this really cool feature that they have on a couple of the head sculpts. It's not going to work for everything, but it will work for at least two of them. So they basically made it to where the hair itself is interchangeable. So what you could do is you can actually pop the hair off. And honestly, it does look kind of cool like this, but if you want to, if you want like the blowing hair, there's a little peg on here, and then in the back of the head, or kind of toward the top, there's a peg hole. So once you line those up, you can actually peg this hair into this one. So if you want them with like the blowing hair, with this type of head sculpt, you could do that. So I would consider this head sculpt a bit more like smiling or kind of happy head sculpt. The one that has the blowing hair on him inside the box has a bit more of that like scarier face. It isn't a huge difference within the expression, but it's definitely different enough. So what you're going to do is, again, you're just going to pull this hood down, and I would just take this hair off, and the head pops off pretty easy. And you're just going to want to pop the new head sculpt on, and then you have the more like blowing hair head sculpt. Alright, and then once you have this head sculpt on, again, you can just put the hood back up, and it does like fit this just as good as the other one. So I like how the hair is kind of blowing from underneath of the hood. Definitely a really, really nice effect. Again, like I said, the hinges in the jaws really make for some unique photo opportunities. I really do like that they added it with this one. But just really nice details overall. And again, this one looks a bit more like angry or like serious, whereas the original kind of has like a happy face. I guess in a way he looks more like inviting. But he definitely looks a lot happier with the head sculpt that's on him inside of the box. So really nice selection. I love the interchangeable hair, and the jaws are just really, really cool. So overall, I really like the head sculpts here. And then the final head sculpt that you get with the Creep here is basically what he looks like in the art. So I did this little comparison for you. You can see how he's got just the one eyeball, and he's got the hair kind of just, coming out from underneath that hood. But he definitely has a much different look on the cover. So that's basically what they were going for with this one. And I really do like this head sculpt. I'm very happy they actually included this with it. Because, yeah, I mean, he looks totally different in a way, like on that cover. He looks more like just a skeleton with one of his eyes hanging out. But yeah, really good details overall in this. Of course, as I said, you get the hinged jaw with it. which would definitely give you a little bit more options for just doing your photography and whatever. Again, you know, the hair doesn't come off on this one, and I'm really fine with that because it's definitely more unique to this specific head sculpt. Alright, so taking a look at the body, and we're going to go ahead and start with the hood, or like the hooded robe first. I really like the way they've done this. I like the one they did with the original, like the first NECA CREEPSHOW figure, which is actually the modern TV show figure. I liked his robe, but it definitely left a little bit to be desired, and I think this one definitely kind of fixes where the first one wasn't really the best at. First of all, you don't have that like seam going right down the middle, and that could be more unique to the show, but it kind of like didn't look that great in my opinion. And the hood on the TV show one was really open, so it didn't really like cover the neck as good. But I like how this one kind of wraps all around him, and the way they do that is there's actually a wire, so you have a wire all through like the top of the hood here, and then if you go over to the back, there's a wire all along every little piece here, so you can see how the wire can wrap all around here, and then it comes around to the front. So the one thing I'll warn you about is if you do undo it too much, you might forget how it looked when you first got it. Now, aside from that really cool looking hooded robe, you do have this really cool body underneath of it. Now, the one thing I'm going to say to you is, as you might have predicted, the body is exactly the same underneath as the TV show version of the Creep. It is really no different that I could see, but I'd probably have to take off the whole thing to be able to tell. But he has the exact same legs, feet, really sculpted nice again, just like the other one. But yeah, it is all sculpted underneath, which is cool, but it is the exact same body as the other CREEPSHOW figure. So I'm sure there's possibly maybe a minor difference, but for the most part, the only difference I really see is the paint. So if you have that TV show Creep, you're pretty much going to expect the same articulation and the same sculpt underneath that. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm just glad that they actually sculpted something underneath of it. But the one thing you will get different is the hands. So we'll kind of focus on the new things between this one and the TV show Creep. So let's go ahead and do that. And the detail in the hands is really good. I mean, you could see the rotted flesh on the hands. You could see the bones kind of sticking through in certain portions of the hands. So really nice details. And then just looking at the back side of his right hand, again, just really nice details. You could see the fingernails. You could see the rotted flesh in there. So definitely really nice details. And again, definitely different hands compared to the TV show version. And here's an early comparison for you, bit of a upskirt comparison. The TV show definitely looks more like fleshy, and then this like classic movie version has more of like that kind of just rotted zombie or kind of like a monochrome type of look. But yeah, you could definitely see all the spots and all the different weathering on the legs. It's exactly the same. So again, the bodies seem to be completely the same. It's just really the hands and the heads that are different here. And then the one thing I'll also say about this version, like the new version of the Creep, you can see where his skirt or his like hooded robe here actually has wire throughout. So you do have the wire in the side here, so it does allow for some like kind of wind blown looks or whatever you want to go with. Whereas the TV show version, it's just like a relaxed fabric, so there's no wire to like hold the robe back in any kind of motion. So definitely a difference between these two. And since it is the same body, all the articulation is the same, so in terms of the head, you can get some really good poses with the head. You can really pivot the head really well. The robe kind of limits him in some ways, so you don't want to go too far out, but you can go pretty far out with the arms. You can go up pretty high. Again, you just don't want to like go too far because you might actually rip the fabric. Not that it wouldn't add another element to the figure since his robe's already tattered, but you don't want to mess it up too much. The torso itself, you can twist it here, so you do have some kind of room. So you can go out with the legs pretty good. You can do a karate kick if you really wanted to. And then he just has like this single joint. You can move a little bit with the feet. And then his wrists do have some really good range. So, you know, good enough range for the character. You know, nothing crazy, no real double hinge knees or anything like that. But he does move his elbows really well. So overall, I mean, good articulation, again, enough for what the character is. Alright, so taking a look at the different accessories for the Creep here. Now, I've already taken a look at the different head sculpts, and truthfully, the hair itself is kind of an accessory, as is the robe. So you can kind of count those two. But the accessories themselves are a bit limited, and they're definitely small. So first thing you have here is the CREEPSHOW comic book, and of course you gotta have this. And it does have like a little bit of like imagery inside, so you can see one of the stories in there, and then you have like a little like ad on the back. But I do like that. And then you also of course get his like candle, and you can see it's kind of melted a bit, and you have like the kind of big flame coming out of the top there. So pretty good like details on that. And then the final accessory you get is the pumpkin. And I really like the way it's sculpted, and I like that it's like, it kind of sits up a little bit. So just to kind of tilt it down for you. But the way it sits, it's like perched up a little. The only thing that I'm complaining about with this one is there's no light in the pumpkin. So that's disappointing. The only time you actually see this pumpkin in the movie itself, it's lit, and it's in the window with Tom Atkins and his family. So, so that's disappointing. Says they always do lights with these pumpkins. So a little disappointed, but overall, I really like the way they did the head sculpts, the interchangeable hair, and I can't say enough, I love the hinged jaws. But yeah, I mean, the accessories are a little light if we're just talking about these three. So, but overall, I'm happy with what we got. Here he is holding the CREEPSHOW book, and the way his hands are positioned, he can actually hold it with both hands. So I really like that. And he looks really good holding it, so you can have him kind of showing it or have him reading it, whatever you want. But definitely holds it really well. And he can hold the candle in case you want to have him like carrying that or holding it. He actually holds it pretty good in the right hand. Alright, and then lastly, here he is holding the pumpkin, and he does seem to hold it pretty well in the right hand. So he can hold all the accessories, which is really nice, and they do look really good with them. Again, just a little disappointed that pumpkin doesn't light up. Alright, so for the first comparison, here he is with the TV show Creep, which came before this one in terms of the NECA figures. And like I said before, I mean, I definitely like this hood, the hooded robe, way better on this one. And honestly, like the interchangeable heads, the way they work, the hinged jaw, there's just a lot of better things about this, even though they use the same exact body. But they do also have some of the same flaws, like the lantern doesn't light up, the candle and the pumpkin don't light up. So you do have some of those familiar things that just kind of miss the mark of being like a perfect release. But overall, I like them both a lot, and I'm really not sure what I like better, like the more fabric hair or the more like sculpted hair. But they're really cool to display next to each other. Again, it's the same body, it's just a different paint, it's a different version, and I really like the wiring all through the hood. So there's just a lot of really cool upgrades with the new one. Here he is standing next to a couple other NECA Ultimates. So you have the Ultimate Ghostface and then the Ultimate Halloween Kills Michael Myers. And they definitely scale pretty well together. And here he is standing next to the Ultimate Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, and then the Ultimate Jason from Friday the 13th Part 3. And again, these actually scale really well together. Here he is next to a couple figures that kind of work. It just depends on how you look at it. the Ultimate Chucky made by NECA, and also the Kevin McAllister from Home Alone, and that's in that retro line. But the fabric kind of helps with the retro line look a little bit better. And then Chucky, I mean, he's a little too big, but it just depends on the camera angle you get. But they could definitely work together if you get the right shot. Alright, and then for the final comparison, here's some stuff that doesn't quite scale well with them. You have the Mumra made by Mattel from Thundercats. Then you have the NECA Toys Elvira, but it is a retro scale, so she's more of that 8-inch scale. And then you have the Retro Sam, which again is in that more 8-inch retro style scale, so he's just too big. And then you have the old Soda Darkman figure. So they look cool in terms of like the idea of like what movies and the genre they're from, but they just don't scale well. Alright, so that's my review of the Ultimate Creep from CREEPSHOW. And overall, I definitely like the figure. The interchangeable heads are easily my favorite part next to the robe. I think those two things they've done pretty much perfectly. The interchangeable hair wasn't really expected, and the fact that you can like change the jaw, like the hinged jaws, it's so cool. That's easily my favorite part about the head sculpts. Like interchangeable hair is cool, but just having those hinged jaw on not only one, two, but they actually have it on all three heads. It's really cool. The head sculpts themselves just make for a really cool display. And honestly, if they did do an accessory set where they made like the ticket booth where you could just put him in it, I would probably buy two of them. One to display with this head sculpt, and then the other kind of to display with just like the hair blowing or whatever. And they could even do like a window or something like that if they did an accessory set with a few different things. I think it just would really add to this figure. And honestly, I don't really care that they use the same body for this release. I mean, it's nice just to have a completely sculpted body underneath this robe that honestly most people will probably just keep on the figure. But I do like that they, added the new hands, because those new hands definitely make it look completely different. But I really like the details in those, and just like the robe itself is just honestly a huge upgrade from the original, so I'm happy with that. So overall, really the only complaint I have about this figure is really just the lack of lights, like with the pumpkin or the candle. The candle itself, I really don't, it doesn't bother me if that doesn't light up. I know that's a harder one to do, but the pumpkin, I definitely wish they would have went the route like they did with Halloween and Trick or Treat. And again, the only time I remember seeing this pumpkin, it was lit, so it definitely would have made sense to have a light in this one. But overall, I mean, it's just a really great release, and if you're a fan of the movie, I think you'll really like this. So thanks for watching my review. If you like the review, go ahead and hit that like button. If you have a comment or question, go ahead and leave it in the comments section below. And until next time, guys, see ya.